Hello and welcome to episode 240 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is May 8th, and together with Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone. So almost 2 years ago, in 2023, Microsoft kicked off the Secure Future initiative. This meant that literally all the services within Microsoft went through a security review and were hardened. While this certainly improved security, it also made a lot of scenarios much more complicated, where in the past you could connect to a service using basic authentication or with a simple certificate. That was no longer possible. Martin, always looking at the positive side, recently talked about how the Secure Future Initiative blocker became a differentiator for SAP with Microsoft. And I love this. With the work that Martin and the team did, we now have a really cool, secure, and much easier to maintain solution to do principal propagation. I'm glad that we have Martin back on our show to explain a little more about the magic that he did. Martin, welcome back to episode 240. I mean, you have been here so many times. It's great to have you back. So I guess everyone knows you, but still, can we quickly start with a short introduction of you and then dive into the topic?
Definitely, yeah. Thank you for the intro, Holger. My name is Martin Pankraz. I'm one of your team members. Maybe that's also a forcing function why I tend to show up here more often than others. Yeah.
And, no. You always bring fantastic content.
I'm also a product manager, and similar like you, also working with SAP as our engineering partner when we develop stuff together, and also helping many of the Microsoft product groups in their SAP journey when they develop stuff focused on the workload. And my primary domain is Entra ID, Defender for Cloud, and Sentinel, but also Azure Integration Services. And the system-to-system integration through that angle also covers security very often.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as you said, the Secure Future initiative is like throwing curveballs our way when we do simple prototyping a lot. Yeah. And this particular item we're looking at today, caused waves at the very beginning. Yeah? So we need to come up with a solution for this. Yeah? And the team that's driving this internally to harden our own infrastructure immediately said, well, the only future you will have is with managed identities, because that's our go-to solution for everything. It's managed, platform-driven, the most secure way of doing things. Everything else is either a workaround or forbidden completely. Yeah? And one of the items in principal propagation requires a token request. So you have a setup where you need to authorize a user to ask for tokens. Yeah? And we'll see a flow sequence diagram in this in a bit. Yeah? And that particular part, that's also like an OAuth flow. But still, that OAuth flow is no longer considered secure because you require a shared secret for it. Yeah? And that aspect is like core to everything we did in principal propagation, and that SAP supports and that Entra ID supports. And that particular part is completely forbidden for some time now. Yeah?
So just to quickly do a step back, when we talk about principal propagation, I mean, just to highlight how crucial, how important this is. So we have a lot of customers that have Microsoft. We have a lot of customers that have SAP. And obviously, there is an integration between these two systems. This can be a server-to-server communication. This can be, and that's obviously something that we see a lot with end users, a client-to-server integration. So if you have Copilot, if you have Teams, if you have an Excel application, if you have a Power App or something like that, and you want to connect to the SAP system, you need to authenticate with the SAP system. And obviously there's basic authentication, which is great maybe for a simple proof of concept. But then if you really want to roll it out in an enterprise fashion, in a maintainable solution, that's when we talk about principal propagation or single sign-on. So you authenticate you sign on once to the application, and then somehow something happens where your user credentials are propagated towards the SAP system.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think some months ago you had actually started a really beautiful flow to document, to provide templates, and to basically show how customers can easily do this principal propagation. Do some configuration on Azure, do some trust between Entra ID and the SAP backend systems, also there with multiple solutions, so that there you really have this principal propagation flow.
Exactly, yeah. And all of the templates can still be used, yeah? But we made a small tweak to really go from the flow that internally Microsoft, this Secure Future initiative, now completely forbids for us as a internal user and R&D services. But we made that like part of the package, yeah? So that everything that is now mandatory for us as Microsoft is now something that makes customers also more secure, yeah, in their principal propagation.
But just actually to highlight this as well, so the flow that you developed or that you created before, that's still valid. There's
Yes.
not like there's a security gap or something like that, or this is now insecure or something. This is still absolutely valid for customers that decide that having this client registration, the flow where you need to create a client ID, a client secret, where you need to exchange these, that's still perfectly fine. It's not that this is not safe. We are just saying on the Microsoft side, we decided internally that we want to make it even more secure. And now basically what you did this even more secure so that customers can decide whether they want to stay with the original one or whether they also want to follow maybe the best practices from Microsoft and now bet on managed identities and make the whole scenario, I would say, not even more secure, but also actually easier to maintain potentially.
Exactly, yeah. If you don't have to worry about expiry dates
Yep.
and rotations of keys or like secrets or shared credentials, that's like a big lift off your shoulders when you do this at scale, yeah, for hundreds of thousands of APIs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then let's have a look at some of the drawings. Yeah. So as you said, the policy in question, yeah. So we're talking about the blog post that triggered this whole conversation. Yeah, that we'll be sharing afterwards with how to do this without shared secrets. The policy supports both flows with client credentials grant with the shared secrets and the managed identity. Yeah, but where I defaulted it to managed identity. Yeah, since we're recommending that as the best way. And the red arrows here are the ones indicating where we have now no more passwords that actually rely on Microsoft's capability to do this as part of the platform. And the yellow one is where we still require the use of like a password, because that's the only way SAP supports it today still, yeah, for this part of the flow. But you're still getting half of the burden, yeah, and yeah, simplification that way. And to make it really more visual, so we're talking about this red arrow here from Azure API management to Entra ID, where we need to request the token exchange and get the summon assertion. And when we go look at my Entra ID app, this is the one that we're using, yeah, for to represent the API management instance. And you can see in here, nicely, I cannot create secrets anymore. Yeah? So even if I wanted, I'm stuck. Yeah, and we are now moving to this third tab here with the nice name federated credentials. We're debating internally if that's really a good name, yeah, but that's that's the name we're given there. And actually, we're now using this identifier here in our token exchange, which is now platform managed. Yeah? And when we go to my API management instance, when we check out the section under security, all of the Azure services that support this have this entry called managed identities. And in here, we have now the option of user assigned managed identities. And this is now linked to this Entra ID app. Yeah? This one here showing up here. So this way, I have now told Entra ID and this app registration that this API management service instance is allowed to make requests towards that. Yeah. This is where the new trust relationship and where the platform managed workflow is.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And once you've done this, the only other thing you need to do is to add line 59 from that we've added on the managed policy that we've been talking about before, and that we can just copy and paste into any of our SAP OData APIs.
Mm-hmm.
And you see in here, there's our standard resource for doing token exchanges. The client ID is read from the variables on the API management instance. And then we're only storing the result for access in the next requests. So a single line added. Yeah? That's it. Yeah?
Cool. Yeah.
All passwords gone for to do the token exchange parts on Enter ID.
Really nice. Yeah. Cool. And this now really means that I don't need to create the client secrets anymore. I don't need to potentially update them because of fear of expiration, or that I fear that someone stole it or whatever. This is now all no longer required for this side, obviously. And I just need to configure the managed identities, establish the trust between my API management basically, and this registered app, and that's basically it.
Exactly, yeah. And this is secure because only API management can do this request.
Yeah.
So you cannot do this from other services, and internal checks and validations, etc. And the output of this is then fed into the next sequence, where the typical OR2 SAML Bureau token exchange to get the assertion for the certificate that SAP will accept. This part of the request became a bit more complicated, but fully supported, fully managed, simple to do.
Well, say again. So this request also needed to be changed, or is this still the same?
Oh, it needed to be enhanced a bit. You see,
okay.
Here's the user assertion, and the APIM assertion now, where we have the managed token in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Because this is where the client secret was needed before. Yeah, I think I have a sample even here. Here it is. Yeah. So this is the post request to Enter ID to do the exchange for the SAML assertion. Yeah. And in here, you still need to provide your client assertion coming from Copilot Studio, Power Platform, you name it. Yeah, whatever app you have that is giving you the login token that you created when you did your login. And we still have to provide this as a job bureau token.
Yeah.
But here we have a second assertion, which is not the one for the client, but the one that is now required for the token exchange. Yeah.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah. And this is then done by the policy where you add this assertion from the mentioned entity token request. The rest is the same, but we had this additional client assertion type added to it. Yeah. So the request with how many is it? 9 parameters. But since this is done in code, you don't need to worry about it. And this is the managed way of using the platform managed identity to do the token exchange.
Really cool. And as you said, I mean, this looks complicated. It is complicated, but I think you not only have the updated policy, I think you also shared the post or the Bruno collections there,
Exactly,
so that everyone can also easily test it.
Yes. Of course, you cannot do this post request. Like I said, you cannot get this assertion. So I needed internal engineering work to do the prototyping of this. To actually get a hold of this. But other than that, it can only be done from Azure services. So either deploy an Azure VM and onboard a managed identity. So you need some Azure resource
to do
the.
Of course, yes, of course, because you need to work with managed identities, which means you need to have an Azure service. So similar, like you trusted API management, where you added the managed identity, you would, as you said, spin up another Azure service, an Azure function or whatever. You would then use trust this Azure function with the managed identity of the registered app, basically, and then you could test it from Azure functions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice, really nice. Okay.
And then just copy this from the usual way, like we describe it on the documentation, and then this is ready to go. The block outlines the change. So I talk about where to create what, and what to look out for, right audiences, etc. But everything is pre-configured. So it's really plug and play. Like I said, there's only a single line that we changed.
Yeah.
Client secret we commented, so it's no longer used as by default. But of course you can bring it back if you need to. All the snippets are left on the policy. You can uncomment and start using also. And then we have a new named value that we didn't have before. So secret is gone. Now you have to provide your managed identity ID, and that's it. The rest works as before. Like I said, Postman collection to do the testing. And I recommend, if you struggle with managed identities, test maybe with client secret first, if that's simpler for you, and then up level to go there.
I was just going to ask. I mean, obviously, there are not so many customers that have tested this yet because it is just released now. But from a approach, I mean, I have been involved now in quite a few troubleshooting sessions, to be honest, with customers that set up the original thing, and very often there are some issues. So I guess the recommendation would be to, well, no, I guess you could start really following this documentation, try to see if it works with managed identity. If it doesn't work with managed identity, then you could fall back to the original setup, which is much, much easier. Still, sometimes a little challenging, but easier to troubleshoot from Postman, obviously. There I can really then identify and single out bugs that I might have. Once this then is working, then I can go back again and enable the managed identities, and then hopefully this would also work.
Yeah, it's just a good practice when you do complex integrations that you can test each step so that you can pinpoint where your configuration error is. Because you wouldn't have bugs, because all of this is configuration only. There's no coding, nothing involved. Meaning there's either a misconfiguration on user settings, on authorizations, endpoints, wrong clients. So there's like a longer list when you touch so many things that can go wrong. And using managed identity gets the token very far away from you. Then you cannot just use it and look at it and verify if there's misconfigurations. Which is great once you have it working. But if you're really deep down in the troubleshooting, it's an additional hurdle for you to verify. That's why I said maybe start with client secrets if you have this, so you don't need to worry about this additional problem surface.
But I mean, let's see and wait for customer feedback.
Exactly,
how complicated is this? Maybe there's then for us also room to improve the logging, or maybe to add some check tools or whatever, to have some verifications in. I think it's always good to get some customer feedback just to see what is working, what is not working. Maybe it's an improvement in the documentation, maybe it's an improvement in the tooling that we help with some checks or something like that. Let's just see how customers adopt it. I mean, for me, what I was really surprised and happy to see is that in the recent weeks and months, the whole policy that you had created really picked up. Like I was really involved in quite a few different customer projects where we implemented single sign-on, leveraging the policy that honestly I think you published like a year ago or something like that. So
it's much longer. It's very stable, and we've only tweaked very small things. When we look at the initial release of this, we can see probably on the history that's much. It's many years already. So where do we go down? 2021 November. Was the initial policy.
So I think it was stayed flat for a very long time, I would say. I mean, obviously there were some adoption, but personally for me, I really see this being picked up. Like literally in the last few weeks, I was engaged with 5 to 10 customers or something like that. I mean, different customers, obviously, that implemented this. So I can definitely see that this concept is picking up. And now with the managed identity, I'm sure even more customers.
For sure, and I haven't gotten this like amount of new people asking for connections on LinkedIn in a long time. So this managed identity thing really like stirred some interest. And we also got additional questions. So I get requests via LinkedIn, also under this blog. People asking, okay, does this only work on Azure? And then I thought like, well, we focus of course on the SAP on Azure part, but the API management team has the self-hosted gateway option, where you can actually install this on Docker or Kubernetes, and a couple more options that's linked on under this link. and bring it wherever you want, yeah, to AWS, GCP, on premises, wherever you can install like a containerized environment. Yeah? And the self-hosted gateway also supports the managed identity. Yeah,
Cool,
and
yeah.
this way you can even bring that part of the token dance to your own network. Yeah? You're not boxed in on SAP on Azure for this. Yeah,
yeah, and as you said, also with the API management policy, I mean, this is all super, super flexible. So if you need to adjust something, if you need to change the architecture a little, if you need to make it work with other scenarios that you already have in place, this is actually fairly easy to do. I was with a few customers, this was actually pretty cool, where customers already had another setup, and we could just slightly tweak the policy in AP and in Azure API management, and then it worked also in their specific setup. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, this is XML. Yeah, you can make changes here. Actually, our Copilot is also quite well versed in this type of coding. Yeah? And yeah, you can make them get even good suggestions on it from there. And one more thing I wanted to show, the under the settings is the decision where this API is now able to run, you can do from here. Yeah? So managed, so meaning this is Azure API management on Azure. And here's my self-hosted gateway that I installed locally on my computer. Yeah?
Ah, great. Yeah.
So add another tag, and now this API is also available in your on-premises network, and still is able to use the managed identity.
Fantastic. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so very simple change, but very like big impact on the efforts you have to do. No more secret rotation, no more expiry of all of these things. Yeah? Single line of code in the policy.
Cool. This is really fantastic, and I saw that you're also constantly updating the blog post, like you said, with questions from the community. So it definitely also makes sense to hit refresh on the blog post a few times to get the latest and greatest on a regular basis. Yeah, and I'm sure we will have more questions from customers coming up, and also feedback and new feature requests, which is perfect, I think. So really great.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Good. Well, Martin, thank you so much. This was a great overview, and I definitely need to replicate the same as well. As you saw, I just read through the blog post yet, but I definitely need to do some configurations on my own as well, and I'm sure many other customers will do the same.
Yeah, your Copilot Studio efforts, they will drive this anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good, Martin. Thank you, and we'll see you soon again.
Looking forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.